Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Dana. I'm the founder of Mumpreneurs Dxb, and with me today is Masesi, the event organizer for Mumpreneurs Dxb, and our guests today are Zach and Wael. And why are we here? We are here based on the feedback we received from your surveys, plus what I heard from you when meeting in our networking events, and also on my experience with licensing. And licensing, it was, for me, took a lot of time, it gave me a feeling of anxiety, and I thought, let's just start with this. And this is why we are here today. And what is going to happen, we're gonna allow our guests, Zach and Wael, to introduce themselves and what they do and how Creative Zone can help you. Then we're gonna go straight to the questions that you have. And at the end, we're gonna open the floor with other questions that you might have that Zach and Wael can help you with. And at the end of these 2 hours that we are together, hopefully you will have all the questions that you have around licensing and have some peace of mind around it. How does it sound? Good, great. Okay, how we're gonna work together, you're gonna raise your hand if you have questions, and Masesi will let you on one by one. And yeah, so that's from my side. I invite now Wael, if you can say some things about himself and what he does in.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your days today to come and listen to us. I hope that by the end of the session, we can give you, as Dana was saying, a little bit of peace of mind on the whole licensing in the UAE. But not just that, but to give you a bit of peace of mind on entrepreneurship in general, as well as the feeling of having every type of question you have answered in that regard. Just to give you a bit of background about myself, I was born in the States, but I've been raised in Dubai. I've been here my whole life. I'm currently the head of revenue and strategy of Creative Zone. However, my journey includes kind of entrepreneurship as well, where I've done something by myself. I opened up a mobile gaming company on the side a few years ago, and I pursued it more seriously. And then I eventually went back into the corporate world as well. So I've done a bit of everything. I have a family of my own. I have 2 children as well. So, I'm very kind of, into the community and to make sure that everything is good. Now, at Creative Zone, we feel like we owe the community a little bit as well. We're very into creating programs of all kinds that are going to promote businesses for the people of the UAE. And we're really excited to kind of have this discussion and see how we take it forward from here. So I'll pass it on to Zach to do a bit of an introduction about himself, and then we can go back to me and we can talk a little bit more about Creative Zone.
Thanks, Wael. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your days to come and have this meeting. So a bit about myself. My name is Zach. I've been in Dubai for nearly 15 years now. So I grew up here, went back to the UK for education and came back, so sort of intermittently. But yeah, so I'm a business setup advisor here at Creative Zone. So Creative Zone have been, as Wael said, Creative Zone have been here for a long time, nearly 11 years now. And we've sort of been integrated into the network of Dubai, obviously setting up companies, working with a lot of entities, new startups, over 45,000 entrepreneurs we've helped since our start, since our realization. So yeah, we've been very, very integrated or interested in getting further integrated, hence this meeting into all kinds of sectors. I think we've also partnered with, or Creative Zone have also partnered with the Dubai Business Women Council. So we've been very active in the sphere of promoting women at the forefront of businesses. So yeah, it's definitely something we're more than happy to and interested in moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Wael. Thank you, Zach. Shall we start with the questions? Yeah? Okay. So Emin said that she needs to leave earlier. So if Emin can ask her, is your question in Slido? Did you put it there yet? If you can unmute.
No, I didn't put it yet, but it's in my mind, and I can ask now if you
please do that. Yeah.
So I'm thinking to set up my business here in Dubai, but I'm thinking also free zones and normal mainland companies. This is going to be like a software selling company. So which process should I get for both of them? And actually my question is advantage of both way, free zones and mainland. Which one is more advantageous, including costs and finding customers, and also maintaining business in this area. When we start up, we want to do business not only in the UAE, but in the region, like MENA region. So please take my question like considering the region. That's my question. Yeah, advantages.
Perfect. Thank you, Amin. So yeah, I mean, a software selling business is something that's done quite frequently here. So it's something that's a very comfortable thing to form. So further to your question on between mainland and free zone. So there are advantages, pros and cons of both. So it really does depend on what sort of structure, what your priority is with the business. Where free zones are more aimed at startups, the costs are usually lower. The visas are all for 3 years. They're all investor visas, things like that. So I think that the free zones are a bit more flexible, and particularly if your priority is price point, it's going to make more sense to do that. The mainland is more aimed at potentially established businesses or businesses that are aiming to be maybe a bit larger initially, that might need office space in the mainland, centrally in Dubai, and can't really work from home, or they want the various different things. They want to work with government entities as a necessity. Only mainland companies can work with governmental and banking entities and some oil companies. But as I say, it really does depend on what sort of software and also what sort of structure you're going to have the business under. So what I would ask you first off is, do you need any office space? Second of which is what sort of structure? I mean, shareholders, how many shareholders and how many visas would you need? And then lastly, what would your priority be? Would it be having a central location, let's say in Dubai in the mainland, or just having an operational company working from home, having that flexibility?
So our priority is our business going to be business to business, not individuals. So it's going to be hospital kind of software. But it will include another logistic companies and oil companies software. But again, our priority is first setup, because it's a startup, as you said. So free zone, when you talk, it came to me like that better setup in the free zone, because it is cost is more, lesser than the mainland business actually. But our aim, we may need office space because we will have the meeting with the business. So we can maybe manage this one to, renting an office for hourly basis or kind of stuff. But at the beginning, yeah, our priority is starting up the business. We have another business, by the way, in the Turkey. So we will bring it here. I'll be the shareholder here and another shareholder. So we will be 2 shareholders here. I don't need visa because I'm a resident here, but my friend, she will need shareholder visa. And our business mainly business to business activities.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. It's clear to me that this would definitely, as you're correct in saying, fit under a free zone jurisdiction. It's going to provide you that flexibility of price point, particularly as it sounds is one of your priorities being a startup, and second of which is just going to be a bit more flexible. Now, business to business will be fine because hospitals here, which you mentioned is the main point, are mostly private. That should be fine as well. So the majority, or if not all of your business, from the sounds of it, will be perfectly fine to fit under a free zone. Again, visas are no issue. Now, my recommendation in terms of the office space, particularly if it's just for meetings, would be getting this on a business hub, for example. So we have one at Creative Zone here in downtown Dubai, where you can have flexible co-working space and meeting rooms, where let's say if you have an investor or you want to meet some clients or something like that, you can just rent that out. You can either do a monthly plan or a yearly plan where you get 10 to 15 days of co-working space usage, 10 to 15 hours of meeting room usage on a monthly basis. So that would be my recommendation. But yeah, very, very comfortably fits under a free zone jurisdiction.
Thank you. And another question, how long does it take if I started my application, how long does it take to finish? How long does it take to get my license?
Yeah, it's a very, very straightforward process. Again, another benefit of the free zone where the company itself should only take about 4 to 5 working days. Then we would need to, because you're one of your shareholders, your partners needs a visa, we would need to have an additional 1 to 2 days, a document called an immigration card. This immigration card essentially allows the business to sponsor any visas, investors or employees alike. So 6 to 7 days total, then plus then we can start the visa process straight away. The visa process will take about 2 to 3 weeks, including the Emirates ID, the medical test, things like that, the whole process. So all in all, I'd say set aside about a month.
Okay. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Sadia here raised her hand, and also Sadia said that she needs to leave early. So if you can ask your question now, unmute yourself.
Yes. Yeah, hi, I'm Sadia, and I am actually a freelance fitness trainer. I wanted to know, how can I get like a visa or make myself legal in terms of advertising, marketing, and reach out to more clients? Or is there a possibility? Is there any way we can do that?
Yes, certainly. So personal coaching or private tutoring in that sense is definitely something you can do. Now, to touch on your priorities of marketing and getting brand awareness, I think a freelancer is a good starting point, but in terms of building a brand, be it that personal or corporate, being able to work business to business, drawing up contract, that sort of thing that you're going to be looking to do, you can only really do that with a company formation. So as I say, you've done the right thing with a freelance to start, but you need to look sort of more into company formation if you're looking to build that, because there are some restrictions with that freelancer, as you probably seen already, where you can't draw up contracts with clients. You obviously can't get a corporate account. You don't really get the benefits of, let's say, a limited liability structure of a company, where, let's say, again, hopefully this doesn't happen, but worst case scenario, the business goes into debt. Your personal assets aren't liable for collection, which is what that LLC structure means. So that, again, fully recommended to get a company on the back of that. Now, because of the interpersonal nature of private coaching or personal training, it does require you to have a mainland trade license, so under the Department of Economic Development. Now, the reason being, just for some information, is that under companies law here, free zone companies cannot transact in the mainland. And obviously, going to clients, taking client visits, things like that are crucial to personal training are going to be considered transacting. So we would have to form this in the mainland. Again, it can be done very, very simply under an activity called personal sports coaching. And this doesn't need an office space, nothing like that. We could do it under a virtual office. So you don't need to worry about extra fees of renting an office or yearly things like that. But yeah, definitely a mainland company would be recommended here under personal sports coaching. And that'll give you all of the benefits that a company would provide.
Oh, sorry. So further to this question, so personal sports coaching would be a license, basically. Is that what you're saying? Or is it going to be a complete company?
Yeah, so it'd be a complete company. So the personal sports coaching is a business activity, and the business activity is linking to the company formation. So the company formation is in the mainland, and in that company, the activity is personal sports coaching. Okay.
Further to this same question, so in case I want to go for online business, let's say something along similar lines, basically, if I, let's say, import stuff, fitness equipment or fitness wear or something imported, and then I want to sell it on, let's say, Amazon, Zoon, and these kinds of online portals, and I want to make an online business. Is that like, how does that work?
Sure. Yeah. So that's a bit more flexible. That would be in a free zone jurisdiction, certainly. So mostly we'll see a trend as we go on here, where free zones are more tailored to, let's say, online or consultancy businesses, marketing business, that sort of thing, where it's a bit more flexible, no office space requirement, and you can work from home, things like that. So you'll see a trend here, but yeah, definitely a free zone company would be recommended for this. It can comfortably fit on an e-commerce activity, which both Amazon and Noon accept and require. So yeah, very, very easy. You can get an import code if you're importing goods under that license as well. So it'd be an e-commerce license in a free zone jurisdiction. You would get that limited liability company structure as well. So that would be my recommendation. In terms of price point, it'll be a bit lower than a mainland company as well.
And
Zach.
Sorry,
Sadia, just regarding the e-commerce license. So are you saying that if you get an e-commerce license in a free zone, you can actually sell in Dubai mainland? Because I keep hearing mixed feedback about it. Like some people say, no, theoretically it's not allowed. If you're having a free zone license, then you cannot sell in Dubai mainland.
Yeah, so
thank you, Lee. That was my next question.
Oh.
So this is quite a common concern, and you are correct inherently. If you're doing the deliveries yourself, it would be considered, as I said, under companies law transacting in the mainland. But the way that to get around this, or the way to have the ability to sell in the mainland, is just going through a logistics provider. So like a delivery company, let's say, taking Aramex, for example. So let's say you had that import code, you would either drop an agreement with Aramex and they could collect it from the port, or you could do it yourself and then get Aramex to deliver it, either or. But as long as you're using a delivery company to take it from the port or from your storage to your client, because that's considered the transaction part, then that's fine.
And can we have a warehouse or a storage space to store the products, like in somewhere, if the products we import for the e-commerce company?
So if you want to own the property, no, but you can go through, let's say, a service provider, for example, like taking Amazon. They do warehousing spaces. There's numerous companies that do a similar thing, where they provide sections of their massive warehouse and they service that out, where you can provide, they provide you storage space, etc. But in terms of owning your own warehouse, no, you can't. You would need a mainland license for that.
Okay, thank you, Zach. Thank you for your...
Thank you. Alicia, I see that you raised your hand. Is this a follow-up question to...
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we were mentioning the different types of businesses. So Christiana and I are thinking of setting up a business where we basically sell swimwear, beachwear, that we would import it from Italy. Our idea would be to sell, to these, have a stand in these pop-up markets or the most established ones. With occasionally maybe also selling from home. Would that be covered under a free zone license or an e-commerce? Because maybe, in the future, we would also be looking at selling through internet platforms, like could be like social media, maybe.
Yeah, great question. So selling from home and selling through online platforms, again, perfectly fine to be done under a free zone license. That's no issue. Now, the only it's not a difficulty, but the only inherent sort of note is that pop-up, because it would be presumably in Dubai, in the mainland. If you were to organize it yourself, or you wanted to pop up, let's say just in, for example, JBR, which is an already set up event, then you would need a mainland trade license. But the caveat to that is that, let's say you wanted to do it in, I don't know, Expo, for example, they have the relevant license to host other individuals, and they would obviously, so they own the space and they can host other individuals. So you would have to request to them to say, look, we're under a free zone license. Can we get a pop-up at your event? And because they've got the mainland trade license for the whole area, they can actually provide you with that. Same sort of situation with the warehousing space, for example, where free zone companies can't have their own warehouse, as in they can't own it, but they can rent from other people that have a warehouse space, if that makes sense. So if that, it's really per permission, is how I'll structure it. So it's not a definite yes. It's based on what they say. But as I said, selling from home, selling online, perfectly fine.
So we can basically assume that the most established pop-up markets, like could be, I don't know, the Ripe markets or the book, they have this type of umbrella, if you want, license, whereby they can sort of like cover for their individual sellers. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. Most of them do, and most of them do accept free zone companies. Otherwise, they would have very, very limited business structures. But yeah, so most of them do. So if that's what you're planning to do, again, first off, what I'd recommend straight away is just speaking with them and say, look, we're planning on setting up a free zone company. Is this something that you're going to be able to support? If not, I'd say find another provider, because there's a lot out there, and a lot of them do accept free zone companies.
Okay. And sorry, can I just ask one more question very, very quickly? What about with the importing aspect? Does that entail anything additional to a free zone license, or? So
additionally, no. So in terms of like structure, no, you would just need to apply for what's called an import code. And under an e-commerce license, I mentioned before, you can actually get that as well. So that's not an issue. So importing, again, taking it into the country is no issue. You would just have to have that delivery company for, let's say, if it was going to go to your warehouse or it was going to go directly to your client. But again, that was covered. There would be, in comparison with a mainland trade license, free zones do have higher import duty. So import duty is collection, or once the goods are coming into the country, you pay an import duty to get them released from the port. But other than that, it's really exactly the same process. As long as you have the relevant trade license and an import code, it's very straightforward.
All right. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Zach. How is it going? All good for everyone?
All good.
Yeah.
All good.
Okay, great. I'm thinking now to move to Slido, where some participants have placed their questions in advance. So I'm going to start with what type of license do I need to offer home organizing services? Is the person who asked this question here?
Yeah, this is my question. I'm Kismet.
Okay, Kismet. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Do I need to ask it again, or is it? Do you need more details, or is my question?
Yeah. So what I would ask immediately in terms of home organizing, again, thank you very much for asking the question. Is that what sort of home organizing do you mean? Is it sort of advisory? Is it consultancy? Or is it you're implementing, let's say, interior design or architecture? What sort of, if you give me a bit more detail on it.
Okay, so basically home organizing, it's not interior design. It's helping people with organizing systems, decluttering, putting organizing systems in place, closet makeovers, storage spaces, and so on. So it's not related to any engineering or interior design like this, but I will be the one doing it in person. So like I go to the house, and depending on what the need of this client, I will implement the service. So I don't know really, there are a few people doing it here in Dubai already. There are a few established businesses, but I don't know, for starters, like I still don't want to start it as a company yet, because I don't know how it will go, and it will be only me. So I was wondering if I need like a freelance license, or what kind of license that I need to do before starting an established company.
Sure.
Now you get what I mean.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying. So if you did it, let's say via a freelance or free zone company, freelance is on an individual basis. It's going to be under probably a gray area, as I've mentioned, that free zones really aren't allowed to transact in the mainland. And if the majority of your business, which is attending clients, which presumably are in the Dubai mainland, it's going to be considered transacting potentially. So if you were to do it that way, it would be a bit of a gray area, which obviously I'm not going to advise. So strictly speaking, this would have to be formed under a mainland company, under an activity called design services. It's very, very straightforward. Again, you don't need an office space. Virtual office is all you would need. We can provide the virtual office as well. That's going to mean that you're going to be sort of within the law, shall we say. So you won't be looking over your shoulder or anything, but it's going to be difficult to do under a free zone or a freelance permit, for example.
Okay, so a freelance license, you cannot provide services inside Dubai, even the freelance?
So Services, yes, but what the reason why I'm tailoring this to you, where you're attending clients' properties and then giving them advice, because these clients' properties are going to be in central in Dubai, in the mainland, and the majority of your business is actually attending these properties and transacting with the client or carrying out business. A free zone under company's law is not allowed to transact or do business in the mainland. Again, consultancy, selling online, anything that isn't sort of physically in the mainland is fine. But because your particular business model is based around physically attending client properties, things like that, I'm going to have to suggest you go for a mainland license to be strictly within bounds.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll move to the next question.
Just to add to that, sorry, Dana, if you don't mind.
No, of course.
There's just a little bit of a misconception that now, mainland is significantly more expensive and more difficult to do than a free zone. And ultimately, recently, due to some of the law changes that have happened, where they've taken away kind of the 51-49% structure for the commercial licenses, this started in June. They've kind of shied away from the fact that they're difficult and more expensive than the free zones at this point. It's becoming a little bit more open. I mean, ultimately, what's happened over the last 5 to 7 years is a lot of these free zones have taken away the majority of the business from the mainland because they've priced themselves out. So actually, if you actually look into the pricing structure, yes, it is still a little bit more expensive, but there are solutions that are not very far off. So I'd like to give that conception to everyone that it's not, because you're in mainland, it doesn't mean you're pricing yourself out of it. So I just wanted to add that.
And what are the requirements for this? Is it like, do you need to have, is it complicated, the requirements, the pricing?
It's not. It's almost as straightforward as the free zone. It's probably, you would say, probably about 20 to 25% more expensive, roughly, to give you an average. We do have, with the co-working solution, I think, Zach, you can touch upon this one as well, that doesn't require people to actually take physical office space. So we have good options in that regard as well. Whereas traditionally, you had to take an office in Dubai in order to set up your business in the mainland.
Yeah, exactly. So touching on that from Wael, so this is what I was briefly mentioning, where you don't really, we have a solution here at Creative Zone, which we're one of the few providers who can actually do so from a certification, where we can provide an Ajari, which is the business registration or business address document in the mainland, in a co-working space, so in the form of a virtual office. And in terms of the setup, it's really, as I said, to echo what Wael said, really not quite as complicated, or not more complicated, to be honest. It will be a bit more expensive, but as I say, the freedoms that you would get, particularly for certain activities where you sort of have to, is worth it, in my opinion. Now, in terms of setup operation, in terms of the days, probably about 7 to 8 working days instead of 4 to 5, so not a huge jump. And the only difference between the two is that you'd have to attend what's called a notary signing, whereas in the free zone you wouldn't. Notary signing is going to an official notary office, which is a governmental entity, and just signing that you're happy with all the details. It should only take about an hour, and that's it. So really, that's the only operational difference in terms of the setup.
I also have a question because of Mainland, so I think it's good to ask it now. It's fine?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, because I'm a teacher and I'm planning to do like a parent consulting. So I will need also a Mainland working permission. And my question is now, because I plan to do one-to-one sessions, even like online or physically, I would go to their house, so I don't need an office or something. But I also planning to do like workshops and like courses like in a weekly basis. So if it is any kind of restrictions for me to rent a room, because I heard that I asked for one room in another community, and they told me, yeah, I will need a VAT number. But when I do like a Mainland working permission, I will not have my own VAT number, right?
Yeah, so you shouldn't need a VAT number at all. So VAT registration, for a bit of information, is only required once you pass $100,000 in turnover, total turnover. And that's the only point as to after that $100,000 is when you have to apply for a TRN, tax registration number. So you really shouldn't be asked for that to just rent a room. at all. I'd say look for a different provider. But as I said, yeah, definitely it would have to have a mainland license because you're attending client properties, things like that. Also, you're trying to. It sounds like you're scheduling events and group meetings, things like that. So yes, spot on. You would need a mainland license, but no, you shouldn't need a VAT registration to just rent a room. And no, it won't be an issue for you. I'd say just look for a different provider.
Okay. And are there any requirements because of advertising or something? No. Can I put like a flyer everywhere, or is this not okay with mainland?
So putting flyers out is probably not, because that requires a specific advertising activity. But advertising your services, let's say on LinkedIn or on Facebook groups, things like that is not against the law. But specific things like getting billboards and stuff like that would require a marketing or advertising license, or at least to go through a partner who has an advertising license that can advertise it for you. So those are two solutions for you.
Okay. And for example, if I do it, I can work then anywhere in the mainland. It's not an issue, yeah? There's
yeah, exactly. Yeah, anywhere in Dubai, yeah.
Okay. Was there one question? Yeah, maybe this is too specific because you don't know, because I'm also planning maybe to contact the German kindergarten. This is like maybe, is there any issue because it's like more governmental, but German governmental?
I can't see that being an issue, just contacting them, particularly because you'd be under that mainland trade license. So they'd be probably very happy to work with you. It really does depend on what sort of things you would be involved with, because as you can imagine, sort of education and particularly the younger generation are sort of a bit shielded, shall I say. So it does depend on what you would be going into that for. But as I say, it shouldn't be an issue at all contacting them, no.
Okay, thank you a lot.
My pleasure.
Thank you. We are moving to the next question is, what type of license do I need for selling Christmas ornaments, decorations online? I'm looking to be a sole trader, no business partners. Is the person who asked the question here? If you can unmute yourself.
It's mine.
Yes, please go on, Ren.
It's pretty self-explanatory, pretty much. I'm looking at doing like a seasonal Christmas sort of decorations, mostly sort of doing sort of small imports, sort of storing it at my home and selling either through online or maybe pop-up markets. It sort of would be more testing at first, because I don't want to sort of go down the route of, I suppose, spending so much money starting up a business if it's not going to be successful. So I want to sort of really work out what I can and can't do in that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. I mean, this is similar to the question that was asked before in terms of licensing, where it comfortably fit under an e-commerce activity in a free zone business structure, which is going to mean that first off, as I understand, price point, particularly with startups, is a focal point. Free zone is going to be perfect for that. What I would ask, do you have a residency visa currently?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, so in terms of price point, we can form this in, let's say, a Northern Emirates free zone, like Sharjah, which isn't first off going to inhibit you from working in the UAE or Dubai at all. And obviously isn't going to stop you from living here. But it is going to be a bit more price friendly. And it can be as low as 5,750 dirhams for the first year. So it's really not a huge hit on the budget. And I think for startups, particularly when you have a residency visa, that's going to be the better option. But operationally, no issues at all with what you said.
Okay. And then, so as you were saying to some of the other girls, if you were to do like a pop-up here, you would just obviously select the markets that have the ability to have free traders. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you would have to submit a request to them beforehand and just say, look, I have a free zone company established wherever you're looking to establish it. Let's say Northern Emirates free zone, for example. Would you allow me to have a pop-up? And they say yes, or they say no.
Okay. All right. And then sort of down the track, if it became that you were sort of doing decorations or organizing trees and that for people, then you would have to swap it over to a mainland company. Is that correct?
You would, yeah. So if you were, as soon as you start doing that sort of thing, like the implementation, you would need to look into that. Now, it's not the end of the world where you can form the free zone company first, and let's say 1-2 years down the line, it's going really well, and you want to open up a second branch or a second company to actually implement it. You can set up a subsidiary, so you can have it connected. You don't have to close the first license because obviously you've built up your brand. So you can have that first free zone company, and you can have a subsidiary in the mainland, for example, that operates the implementation side of things.
Okay. All right. And then, so the third question was, if I'm obviously storing things in my garage, just like my warehouse, if obviously you can't have people come to your house, or can they come to your house and view your setup but not purchase from you, and then sort of do an online order and then send it to them through a delivery company?
Yes, that is possible. If the last way you structured it, where they would come, just look at it, but all of the transactions, and it's important to stress that all of the transactions are done online through the website. Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay, that's excellent. That's pretty much sort of what I wanted to sort of work out.
Yeah,
thank you.
My pleasure.
Before we move to Alicia, who has a follow-up question, may I please ask everyone to switch off their microphone? There is some background noise happening. All right, thank you. Alicia, you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. Sorry, because I was just wondering, because Zach mentioned the northern free zone licenses. So I was curious to understand what's the difference between a Northern Emirates free zone license, that like could be, I don't know, Sharjah or Ras Al Khaimah, as opposed to a Dubai free zone license. Is there any restrictions from one to another? Like if we're based in Dubai, are we still good to go for a Sharjah or Ras Al Khaimah one?
Yeah, great question. So operationally, they're identical. Again, not setting up in a Northern Emirates free zone is not going to inhibit you from working in the UAE or operating in the UAE, or even obviously living in the UAE. So operationally identical. Now, the reason why Dubai free zones are going to be a bit more beneficial in certain circumstances, particularly if you need a visa, is that first off, if you're looking to have a visa, it's a Dubai-based visa, which means for vaccinations, for driving licenses and official documentation, it can all be done in Dubai, whereas in Sharjah, excuse me, in Sharjah, it would have to be done in Sharjah. Again, it's only a 20-30 minute drive, but still something to be considered. The second thing is that a Dubai-based company, particularly with the address, the Dubai address, is going to be much more friendly to investors that are overseas, that are looking at Dubai as a focal point of business. They don't really look at Sharjah, or they probably don't know what Sharjah is, to be honest. But that's probably the two main benefits, is that visa, that presence, that sort of thing. But as I say, operationally identical.
Is it maybe also to do with opening up a bank account? Like banks could be more friendly towards
a little, yes. So it's not as big of a factor. I think the biggest factor is comparing a free zone to a mainland. Mainland is much easier to open a bank account. Now, free zone is not impossible at all. I mean, you probably heard some horror stories, and I like to confirm they're not true. It's just a time thing. It's not difficult. It's just a bit tedious, but again, we can handle that for you if you want as well. But yeah, in terms of bank account, it's going to be maybe a little easier in Dubai, but not substantial, no.
Significantly. Okay, thank you. Thanks very much, Zach.
Just to add to that, if you do, obviously, one thing we do at Creative Zone as well is that we have a very strong concierge service, and part of that concierge service, which is the after sale service, is banking support. So we actually have specialists that will sit you down, look at your case, and basically advise the type of banks that would suit best for you, based on your activity, based on your background. There's a whole list of things that need to be fulfilled in order for you to set up a bank account. And we have the expertise to actually give you that advice as well, post your licensing.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move to the next question. If you wanted to do pop-up markets or create and deliver items to clients, does this license shall fall under the same one as being an online business? Is the person who asked the question still here, and as somehow Zach already answered to this question already? Yes? No? Hi? No. All right. Do you want to say anything extra about this? Zach, do I need to read again the question?
No, it's clear to me. So I think we've covered this previously where, yes, it can fit under a free zone license, but it would just be per request. So the pop-ups is still a possibility for that person, but if they would just need to request it directly with the organizer of the event.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next question. What type of license do I need to sell art illustrations online or over Instagram? No partner, just me. Is the person who asked the question here? All right, not here. Can you please, Zach? Can you answer, please?
Yeah, of course. So again, another similar case that'll be comfortably fit under an e-commerce activity in a free zone jurisdiction, sort of through and through. Selling online, selling through Instagram, again, very comfortable to be done under a free zone without an office space, very easily. Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next. If I found a location such as a business suite, cafe, private room, and wanted to run art classes, what kind of license would I need? This art classes are for adults or for children?
Yeah, so if the person's not here, I'll answer that now. So the art classes, again, it's going to be a situation where, because it's going to be presumably in the mainland, even though you're going through a rented space, the majority of the business is going to be in the mainland, and the main transactions and the rotation of the business itself is going to be in the mainland. So you would need a mainland trade license for that. Again, it's very, very simple. It's arts training is the activity. It's not a huge sort of draw. There's no external approvals. There's no office space required. It's very, very easy to do, but it would require that mainland trade license. Yeah.
Thank you. Next question. Can I run paid crafting classes from my home? If not, can I run free crafting classes from my home and sell my handmade through them? What license will allow it? Is a person who asked this question here? All right, Zach, would you like to answer?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a bit of a similar story to the last question as well, where these classes, even if they're paid or not, it's the majority of the business itself, or it's still considered operating in the mainland, and would still need a mainland trade license. Also, classes tend to be considered under what's called educational, which is only available under a mainland as well. So these sort of things where there is a physical presence, again, it seems to be a trend as well, where there's a physical presence, or the majority of a business business operations are done in the mainland of Dubai, it would require you to have, require you to have a mainland trade license. For the actual selling part, again, that would quite comfortably fit under a free zone license. And my suggestion actually for this is potentially, if it's a possibility for them to do it on Zoom or online, because then they could do both the selling as well as the classes under a free zone license, because they're not physically present. They could do it, let's say, under a consultancy activity or something like that, like a training activity in the free zone, if it's online. And then in the free zone, you can also have multiple activities. So you could have a tertiary activity of e-commerce, right, to actually sell the products. So that would be my suggestion if they want to fit under a free zone. If they're adamant on they want the physical classes, then yeah, mainland, they would have to go down that route.
Thank you. Next question. Does having a golden visa open your options for licensing? How can it help? Is the person who asked the question here? I guess not, Zach. Do you know anything about this?
I guess not. 3 for 3. So golden visas, they're more of an independent, they're more on a personal basis. They wouldn't really help inherently with, let's say, opening a business, i.e. it's not an advantage. Now, the advantage does come where a golden visa, first off, shows that you're investing in Dubai. Second off, you already have a visa, which means that you don't need to have a visa under the license. So inherently, there is a benefit where the license cost would be reduced because you don't need a visa under it. But in terms of getting special benefits or something like that via a golden visa, there aren't anything like that, unfortunately. It's more of an on a personal basis where it's for 10 years.
Thank you. Next question. What kind of license is best if we sell natural skincare products? What is the cost of product registration? We know that a manufacturer's license is uneconomical. The person who has this question here.
Hi, finally somebody's here asking the questions.
Okay, Namrata, let's go.
Hi, Zach and Wael, is the question clear? Should I give more details?
Yeah, no, it's clear to me. Pleasure to meet you, Namrata. So I agree, a manufacturing license or an industrial license is very uneconomical. So for that sort of thing, sorry, could you clarify the product side of thing just briefly for me?
Yeah, sure. So we are making natural skincare products. So these are like creams, serums, body lotions. So currently we are making it at home, but I'm sure later on it'll not happen like this. So there are no preservatives, no water. It's all natural.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So this could comfortably fit under a free zone. Now, it wouldn't be an e-commerce activity because anything that's ingested or applied to the skin needs to have a specific business activity. Again, it's not an issue. It's an activity, or depending on if it's B2B or B2C. Most likely, this sounds like it's going to be B2C. It's a retail sale of makeup articles or beauty products, I believe, is the activity name under a free zone. So yeah, definitely more economical than a manufacturing license, and that's going to allow you to have an import code, and it's going to be also allow you to actually import the products in the future. It sounds so. Also, the second part of your question, another great question, is the registration. So product registration. We can help you with it, or you can do it by yourself. Usually the cost per product, again, it's going to be discounted if there's more products, but usually we see it in and around that sort of 200 to 300 per item, that sort of mark.
What would be the approximate cost of getting a free zone license for this kind of activity? And I'm assuming I can do trading outside in mainland areas. Yeah,
correct. You can. So again, whilst you're in the mainland, you would need to have a delivery company. I assume you'd be doing that anyway. But and as I say, overseas, there's no restrictions at all. You can trade. So the cost wise is going to depend on your structure. So, and also visas, particularly, as I've touched on. So would you need any visas under the license, anything like that?
No, we don't need any visas. We are already on resident visas.
Okay, perfect. So the cost for this would be a bit higher than the 5,750 price point I mentioned before, because it's not under promotion. So the cost, excuse me, the cost for this would be 11,500 in, let's say, Northern Emirates free zone. If you wanted it in a Dubai-based free zone, it would be a bit higher because they charge that premium for the Dubai location, etc. But as I say, 11,500 is all that would be needed to get that business off the ground.
And the product registration, does it have to be with the Northern Emirates municipality, or it is applicable for the entire UAE as a region?
No, applicable. So most likely you would come into Jebel Ali port, but yeah, you're not restricted to one specific port based on where your location is.
Okay, that's clear. So just to recap, you saying instead of a mainland, I can still operate on a free zone license.
Exactly, yeah. So
it's very difficult.
Yeah, exactly. So as long as you use a delivery company for your goods to take it to the client, you can operate under a free zone.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Next question. What license is required if I want to sell home appliances on the pop-up markets? Is the person who has a question here, and is the questions, I mean, did the person get the answer?
Right. Hi, Dana. Hi, Zach. Yeah.
Hi, Jezabel, was you.
It was me, of course. Hey, so sorry, wait, I'm just going to start the video. Otherwise, you're just looking into the emptiness. Wait. Hi, morning. So I think it was answered already so many times. A lot of questions were around pop-up markets, but I already kind of figured the difference that you can do it from a free zone or you can do it from the mainland, which will be a bit more expensive. But for me, it will also be required to import the products, where you already said the import tax is a little bit cheaper actually when you have a mainland license, no?
Yeah, correct. So yeah, pleasure to be introduced to you again. So the importing the products again can be done under a free zone or a mainland. It is going to be more beneficial in terms of import duty under a mainland license. Now, it really does depend, because you would only really see that benefit on a larger scale. So if you're importing a lot of products quite frequently, that's where that benefit is going to come in. But if it's just sort of 1 or 2 products occasionally, I'd say it's not going to be a massive benefit. And the cost sort of difference, let's say, between a free zone and a mainland would probably sort of even out, let's say, probably more beneficial towards a free zone. Again, pop-up side of things, I've covered this, but yeah, more than comfortable to do under a free zone, as long as you get that permission.
Okay. Yeah, I already spoke to the market, and they said they don't ask you for a license at all. So I assume it's the same thing that you said, like, yeah, you have to, I think they just ask you for a license if you fall under a specific category. And as I don't fall under that specific category, they said they're not really interested in seeing my license. So, and as far as I understood from all the questions before, it's enough for me to just have an e-commerce license when I want to sell it online as well, to as well join then the pop-up markets, as in like rent a stall there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. That'll fit comfortably.
Okay, perfect. So I just actually need the e-commerce license if I want that. And the pop-up markets are, because they offer the space, they have already all the licenses and everything. The same with the warehouse. Okay.
Exactly, correct.
I think that's pretty much sorted. And I think for the rest of the prices and everything, I have to call you directly then.
Yeah, more than happy to speak to you. Yeah, no worries at all.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Jezebel. Stephanie, you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, it was because of the pricing, because I'm a bit confused, because you said about 10,000 for like mainland license. What was mainland? No, it was free zone, yeah. But
zone,
and then you said before the mainland will be a bit more expensive, and now I checked already out that I need a mainland license. So and I have an offer, and it's about 6,000. So now I'm a bit like, is there something wrong, or is there something I need to know?
Yeah, 6,000 is going to be. I'd be concerned, to be honest, and I'd have a look. I mean, I don't have any quote in front of me, so I don't want to sort of put anything on blast, or I don't have anything to reference. So I'm sort of going in blind here. But what we tend to charge, including everything, which is government fees in the form of what's called a payment voucher, which is things like securing the trade name, any notary fees, and basically any fees that the government incurs during the process will be contained in what's called a payment voucher. A lot of quotes or things that a lot of clients or previous clients tend to receive are excluding that. So it's just the cost of the business, which is a little dishonest, but as I say, it's what gets done. So I'd say have a close look at the quote. What we tend to price it in is in and around a minimum of 23,500, including virtual office, payment voucher, all of the fees, PRO fees, etc. As I say, yeah, I'd say have a close look at the quote to see what's included and what's not.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. I noticed that Najla wrote on the chat that she needs to leave soon, and she wrote also the question, but I noticed that she's still here. Najla, would you like to ask your question now?
Hello, yes, I'm driving, so I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, all good. Please go.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I have started with the Cookie Factory, which is a cookie brand, basically similar to Ben's Cookies, Mrs. Fields, and that type of thing. I've started from home, and I'd like to know what type of license I need in order to start selling more on social media, like to be licensed and to distribute in cafes, and then maybe in the future to open a kiosk / cafe at the mall. So what type of license? And I'm guessing for food, I think I may need something extra for safety. And last question, I was told that at the mall, if I want to open a kiosk, I was told that I can work under the mall license. I don't need my own license, so I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Sure. Okay. So I'll again, pleasure to be introduced, but yeah, let's start with the first part of that. So what I would say is an important sort of discerning factor, but first off is there's two categories. First of which, if you're just selling it and you're not actually creating it, then it would be quite easy to do this, let's say under a free zone, under an activity, let's say if it's B2B, it would be wholesale. If it's B2C, if it'd be retail of food and beverage or food and beverage trading, something like that. However, if you're actually creating it, you're correct where you say that it does require a lot extra. It can't be cooked and created on a business perspective from home, because there's things like approvals that are required from Food, Health and Safety Department and irrigation, where you would need to get a mainland trade license under, let's say, a cafeteria activity or a restaurant activity. Cafeteria if it's just snacks, which it sounds like cookies wise would fall best under. Restaurant if it's actually, let's say, main courses, for example. But if you're doing it on a business basis where you're preparing the food, it would have to be done under a mainland license with a physical kitchen space to get that approval from the Dubai municipality on the food, health and safety. So it's quite an investment, to be honest, but it's really the only way you can do that. If you're just selling them, as I said, it's much easier for you. And you can do it, let's say, on a wholesale or retail sale of food and beverage, for example. Touching on the last point about the pop-ups, again, it's a similar story. Some venues, as it sounds, don't require you to have a license, or that you can go under their license, or they just need an approval via an NOC, no objection certificate. There's a multitude of different ways it can be done, but as a rule of thumb, as a basis, in order to do anything, sell anything, do anything as a service, you need a company formation at minimum. So obviously you would need a trade license anyway. But yeah, I mean, if they've said you can go under their license, then perfect. That makes life a lot easier for you.
So in that case, I just need a trade license and I have my brand, and then I can just work under their license, like the mall or wherever.
So you wouldn't be able to work under their license, no. So what they're probably meaning is for that pop-up particularly. So only that pop-up, only that part of the business, that physical space is where you could go under their license. For anything outside of that, i.e. the main company formation, you would need to have a trade license anyway, if you're wanting to sell anything here.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right. There are two more questions on Slido. One says, what type of licensing will I need to offer services, consultancy and IT related, to different businesses in the UAE as well as international businesses? Is the person who asked the question here?
Seems maybe not.
Maybe not, yeah.
No worries at all. So for offering services, as I said at the beginning, we'll see a trend where anything service-based or marketing or online, where there's no physical presence, perfectly fine to do under a free zone. So yeah, offering IT consultancy, IT services, even software as a service, which it sounds like this isn't the case, but yeah, perfectly fine to do under a free zone jurisdiction. The only caveat to that is that governmental entities may not want to work with a free zone company, but as I said, you can work with quite literally anyone else. Overseas will be fine as well.
Thank you. And before I move to last question, there are people here who have not asked my question on Slido, and they have questions they want to share to you. So if you can raise your hand. So after this question, after you answer to this question, after Zach will answer to this question, then we're gonna move to the questions after each of you raise your hand. Is it clear? Did I make myself clear? Yeah, okay, great. So last question. Will any type of licensing allows dealing with businesses in free zones?
Yes. So a free zone license, if you want to deal with companies in the free zone, I mean, to be honest, both licenses are going to suit that. It depends what sort of business activity. Again, there's a lot more detail that would be needed, but at the base of it, both free zone and mainland companies can work with free zone companies.
Thank you, Alessia. So we finished the Slido question now. Alessia, you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. Sorry, always us. So because Zach mentioned that, of course, when you apply for a trading license, mainland or free zone, you need to set up a company. What does that entail? And is there any difference between setting up a company under a free zone license or mainland?
Sure. Yeah. So setting up a company is it's quite straightforward. Again, it's what we've been discussing, where trade license, there's a lot of sort of different names for it, but a company at its core is what would allow for trade license and trading in the UAE. So the main differences, as I said, operationally are between a mainland and free zone. I think I've covered, where if you're doing any business in the mainland, or you're transacting in the mainland, or the majority of your business is physically present, that's where you essentially you could only do a mainland. Operationally, dependent on the activity, in most cases, mainland companies can be done under a virtual office. As I said, these specific activities, as I mentioned before, let's say if you're preparing food, would require external approvals from municipalities, things like that, where you would have to have a kitchen inspection, for example. But again, operationally, pretty much identical. As I said before, there's also one thing called a notary signing in the mainland, which is a requirement. It only takes an hour, but as I said, the free zone companies don't require that. In terms of differences, other than the physical location, let's say if we set up in a Northern Emirates free zone, the difference between a Northern Emirates free zone and a Dubai mainland company, it's going to be the physical presence is going to be a Dubai-based company, Dubai-based visas in the mainland, and vice versa in the free zone.
Yeah, sorry, but thank you very much. Yes, that I think you've repeated it quite a lot. So sorry if I ask you once again. No, but what I meant to ask is, like, to set up the company, is there a need to be like a minimum capital injected in the company, stuff like that, or when you dissolve the company, how does that work, or is it just purely if you want like a formality?
Yeah. Okay. So share capital, no, there's no minimum capital. You usually, in most cases, that you have to inject into the company. In free zone, you would never do certain activities in the mainland, like let's say manpower supply, which is temporary recruitment. You would, but for the majority, again, no. So there's no minimum share capital, no paid up share capital, nothing. There are liquidation fees for both mainland and free zones. Liquidation fees in order to close the company. Now, these are minimal. It's only about 2,000-3,000 dirhams usually. To actually close that company, pay that liquidation fee. I'm trying to think of other operational differences. To be honest, there's not really much. One thing to note is that business licenses here are annually renewed. So every year there is a cost. But visas are usually deducted from that cost if they're required, because visas last for 2 or 3 years. So, but the business licenses are annually renewed. So, but yeah, other than that, there's really no caveats to it.
And no maybe differences in terms of like, do you require a bank account to be open or not?
So technically you don't, but it's obviously a very, very, very strong recommendation that you do have a bank account open, a corporate account attached to it, because obviously that's really going to be the main function, or the main way the business functions. So.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
To add to that about the banking side of things as well, the reason why it's also very important to have a bank account open is because essentially if you're starting to receive payments from people and it's coming to your personal accounts, the banks will flag it eventually and say, you know, there's a lot of activity in your bank account. What is this all about? So essentially, it's really important that you tie your business into a commercial bank account.
Okay, thank you. That's a very good point. Thanks.
Thank you. I see here Mona raise her hand.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mona.
Okay, so I mean, we've talked a lot about mainland licensing and freelance licensing, but I wanted to know more about, I've heard so much about the DED licensing. Is this something that's not applicable for expats? I just want to know a little bit more about it and what kind of business activities would fall under it.
Sure, yeah. So the DED is the mainland. So it's a categorization. So mainland and free zone are 2 categorizations. The jurisdiction is the DED, so Department of Economic Development. So they're one and the same. So all we've discussed about mainland will be applicable as it's the DED.
Sorry, can I follow up on that?
Yeah, of course.
So from what I understand about DED, the cost is just like around 1,000 something, whereas when you're talking about mainland and freelance, you're talking about
10,000 or 11,000 or even more. So can you explain a little bit more?
Sure. The DD, so there's two categories. One is a company formation. The one you're talking about for 1,800 is the equivalent of a freelance permit, for example, where it's done on an individual basis. You don't have a company, you don't have a corporate bank account. It's not a company entity. You also can't sponsor any visas. You can't have a visa under that. So it's a very temporary solution, but it's not a company formation. So there's two different categories there. Equivalent is, as I say, the same as, let's say, for example, a freelance permit, which we've spoken about briefly here as well. So there is an important distinction between the two.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Kismet, you raise your hand.
Just a question. Can I do this trade license when my visa is on my husband, or I need to have another separate visa?
No, you can do it under your husband's visa. So all we would need, let's say if we went for the mainland trade license, we would just need an NOC, a no objection certificate. Again, we can draft up the template for this, and your husband just needs to sign it. That's it. But yeah, you can operate it under a visa, sponsored visa, I mean.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Stephanie, you raise your hand.
Yeah, I was about wondering is it for me necessary to set up a business or like a company, I mean? Or is it possible that I'm just under somebody and I have just like a working permission for mainland? Because the thing is, I have 2 kids and I will not work many hours, and it makes no sense to me like to do my own thing with like 20,000 or something. It makes no sense for me. So is this also an option to be under somebody else's company and then to get a work permission and then to do like freelancing, right?
Yes, again, so it's a bit of a difficult one, that. So it's up to you which way you want to structure this, if you want a business or you want to do it on an independent basis. I think that's sort of a decision for yourself. But what I think you're getting at there, if you're working for on a freelance basis for a company, you would need a freelance permit. You wouldn't be able to be one of their employees, but work separately to them. So if you wanted to do it on an individual basis for very few hours, by the sounds of it, sort of just on a temporary basis, or not temporary, but you get what I mean, sort of short hours, then maybe a freelance permit is a good place to start until you build the business. Again, we actually don't facilitate freelance permits, but there's plenty of providers that do. So a freelance permit, just for clarity, is excuse me, is essentially a permit to do exactly as you said, for work freelancing for other companies, and allows you to get one visa and do one particular activity. Again, it is on an individual basis, so it is very restricted. I'd only recommend it on a short term, or if you're trying to build capital, let's say, or if you're trying to test an idea. It's very, again, you'll find out probably, but it is restricted. But if you're trying to build capital and you want to work sort of short hours, you want to reduce the cost sort of quite substantially, maybe that's an option for you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Alternatively, Stephanie, as well, just to touch up on your idea, I know obviously the capital is a little bit high to start with, but ideally in a perfect world, the only other alternative solution to the freelancer is to come up and come to an agreement with a company that will be doing the exact same that does the exact same activities that you plan on doing, and kind of do a tie-up with them. I mean, but it's going to be very difficult for you to find that exact company that's willing to actually take you on, etc. So ideally, I think your only option is either to do that freelance and kind of test the waters, like Zach's saying, or set up your own business. Otherwise, it will be very difficult.
Thank you. All right. Is anyone here who wants to ask more questions? I see no raised hand yet. No? Okay, great. Now, so we have completed the questions, and wait, I have one more question. Sorry, guys. There is Maya who had to leave earlier, and she asked me to ask on her behalf. She says, I'm currently employed for a company in free zone at JAFSA on 3-year visa. I want to start my business on the side. Can I do that while still employed and on employer's visa? Or is it one or the other?
Yes. So you can, if it's a free zone company that you're wanting to start, or it's an activity that would be under a free zone company, you can, and you don't need that NOC that I said earlier, the no objection certificate from a sponsor. If you're planning to open a company that can only be done in the mainland, then you would need an NOC. There's no objections certificate from the sponsor of your visa, which would be your employer in JAFSA. So as I said, you can in both ways. It's just a document difference.
All right, thank you. So if you don't have any other question regarding licensing, do you have any other questions that Zach?
Alicia has her hand raised, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't see. All right, great. Alicia, yeah, please.
Sorry. No, I was just curious to ask if Creative Zone, they can help also for setting up the import code. Is it something that they can assist with as well?
Yeah, we can indeed. Yeah, we can do that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Maya has a follow-up question. She said, I'm a writer, author, will be applying for Golden Visa. I sell my books and my services, which are life coaching and creating therapies, including teaching yoga and meditation. What kind of license would I need for both selling the books and offering my services?
Good question. So if she's offering the service side of things, let's say the classes and yoga that she mentioned, if she's doing that online, then both of these activities can comfortably fit under a free zone. If not, and if she's doing these physical classes, let's say we would have to go down the mainland route, and she would have to have two separate companies for this, because it gets a little complicated, because the way free zone's a bit more flexible is also in terms of business activities, where you can have up to 3 different activities that can be completely unlinked to each other. They don't have to be correlated at all in the free zone, and that as is standard. So she could do both the services, the teaching, and the e-commerce under one license. But if she's doing physical classes, she needs physical space, or she's doing that sort of thing that would need a mainland. Mainland works very differently with the activities, where they need to be correlated or somewhat related. So services, let's say yoga and selling online, wouldn't really be related. So she would have to set up a mainland license for the services, and then a free zone company, let's say e-commerce activity for the selling.
Thank you, Zach. All right, we said we open the floor for any other questions not relating to licensing. Wael, any other things that you guys do there?
We do a lot, actually, Dana, that goes beyond just the licensing aspect. I mean, we have, like I touched upon earlier, a very strong concierge service section in our company that assists with things like driving licenses, getting tourist visas, attestation, bank support. I mean, HR solutions. I mean, in the life of a company, I'll tell you from personal experience, because like I said earlier, I did start my own business. Starting your business is the first step. It's what comes up next. That's the difficult part. What are the next steps that you need to take to ensure that the life of your company is, well, first of all, you're covered in all aspects. So be it legally, or be it through hiring the right staff, or all of that. And ultimately, that's where Creative Zone's trying to kind of go that extra mile and provide certain packages that provide all that certain type of support. We even have a whole tax and accounting division, for example. Now, a new thing that's come up is, they have the ultimate beneficiary ownership thing that's required from every single company that sets up in Dubai. It's basically a KYC document that the central bank needs to know who you are, and all of these things. So these are sections that we can assist with as well. There's a lot of things that come up post the setup part. The setup part is step one. Through my experience, actually, funnily, I started working at Creative Zone 6 months ago. I'm a Creative Zone client from 5 years ago. So it was quite interesting to go in from the side of a customer and then become an employee, and kind of merge both things together to see where were the advantages and where were the gaps that Creative Zone weren't able to assist with. And now, 5 years later, we've kind of closed those gaps, where Creative Zone provides you all types of services beyond just your business setup.
Thank you. All right. Well, if are not any other questions, and how do you feel? Do you feel what did you get from here? And open the microphones and let's share. How do you feel about it?
I hope you guys got, you know, a little bit of a understanding, a little more of an understanding of how the structuring and the setup side of things work. And we also want to, you know, extend our hand out to say, obviously, we're here to assist in any way possible. So if there's any more inquiries that you want to bring on to us post this webinar, please feel free to contact us. Me and Zach are always willing to help as much as we can. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And once again, thank you so much for taking the time. I understand you guys are extremely busy, and we're happy to assist.
All right, great.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you
Yeah,
everyone.
I was just listening. Thank you.
I'm gonna post this recording. I need to find a way to do it. So if you guys know how to do it, it would be great to have some advices. I like to put it somewhere that you can download it or other people can download it. And thank you very much. I hope you got the answers and feeling better about it, peace of mind, what we are looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I will share the link somewhere. Thank you, Wael. Thank you, Zach, for doing this. Thank you, Masesi, for making this possible.
Thank you, Dana.
Yeah, Creative Zone. Yeah, Wael, please, I have their email address. I will share it in the group.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.